we're continuing our series of looking at the founder to leader's journey. And this time, the format is slightly different. And we are having a kind of sort of fireside chat, as they say, with guest speakers. And today I've got somebody who I got to know very well over a few years, which is Katie, who's here, Katie Matthews-Furphy. And we work together with the Global Entrepreneurship Network. And so I want to talk particularly about Katie's journey, and I'll give a bit of an introduction to Katie in a moment. So just in terms of housekeeping, we've got the recording going. Hope everybody's okay with that. It doesn't get shared more widely than the list of people who've registered for this series. And as usual, we have a number of people register who haven't been able to join us today, but recordings go up on our closed online community group. And you can, and people who can't make it can actually view the recordings there. So this is the continuing journey from founder to leader with female founders. And this series of weeks we're calling Meet the Founder series, as I say, fireside chats. And so over today's session, we'll aim to finish promptly at 5:45. We're going to cover a chat with myself and Katie, and then a discussion, a Q&A session. We broke into groups last week, but I think that makes us a bit tight on time. So we'll just take a general Q&A session altogether, and then do a quick update on what's going on and what's happening next, and various bits of news from me and the sorts of things that I'm doing with other female founders. So I'm not going to go into an introduction for me. This would be on the slide deck for people to have a look at if you don't know me already. But I think you all know me by now, and you know my work with female founders and entrepreneurs over the last 12 plus years, and as a management and leadership consultant for probably going on 40 years. But this series is all about the journey that we take as founders of our businesses, from the very early stages to growing our business, the different pressure points there as we grow, and how our leadership style changes, to thinking about, well, what's our exit strategy going to be, or what's the legacy of our business likely to be. And it's not as linear as it looks. As we discussed with Beth last week, we quite often think about our legacy right at the beginning, because it's a bit about the purpose, and that's something I want to talk to Katie about today. So Katie is a very inspiring individual. As I say, I've known her for a few years now, and we've spent a lot of the time, particularly because it was COVID years, on Zoom calls like this, looking at each other through a little box. But Katie is won so many awards. She's based in Northern Ireland and has won many of those, as you can see: Business Person of the Year, Young Business Person of the Year, Young Leader of the Year. And Katie very openly talks about the struggles that she has, suffering from mental illness and physical disability. And that's something that I want to talk about with Katie today, but it's something we might discuss when we get to the Q&A session. So to talk about people's experiences of maybe struggling with your business. We all experience stress and depression as a founder, but clearly there are many people who find entrepreneurship a really flexible way of working, particularly if they have particular disabilities. So we can talk a bit about that with Katie. So I'm going to stop sharing now, and I'm just going to say welcome to Katie. And perhaps Katie, that was a very quick overview from me as an introduction to yourself, and perhaps you can give me an update, because you and I haven't really spoken for probably about 6 months or maybe more than that now. So what's been going on with you, and how's your journey been with your businesses so far?
Well, first of all, hello everyone. Thank you very much, Elaine, for the invitation to come along today and speak to you. I recognize a couple of faces, which is nice. So yeah, my journey, my goodness me, where do you even start? So start at the very beginning, I suppose. Or no, let me tell you about who I am first. I'm trying to tell you everything at once because you know what I'm like, Elaine. I'm a talker and I need everybody to know my story immediately. So I have founded four businesses and two voluntary organizations. I started my first business when I was 23 and I'm now 32. So a couple of weeks ago, just celebrated 9 years in entrepreneurship. And it's been a hell of a ride, to say the least. As Elaine already alluded to, obviously living with mental illness, which we'll go into, and experiencing disability. There's been other challenges along the way, but we'll save those little fun nuggets for later. Um, as I say, live in Northern Ireland. I've been over here for I think nearly 14 years now, and really, really passionate about mental health and well-being, supporting women, supporting young people, and particularly supporting people that have been underrepresented, underfunded, and undersupported within the enterprise and entrepreneurship space. So my most recent project, if you like, I was successful in winning the tender with Belfast City Council for the first ever inclusive entrepreneurship program in Northern Ireland, that's council led. So it's a big step forward. And over the last year or so, I've been working with a group of 15 aspiring entrepreneurs, which are now entrepreneurs. That 100% of them went on to launch their businesses. So very, very proud of them. And throughout that process, it's kind of helped me grow as well. But I'm sure we'll dive into that a bit as well. And the other thing about me, I love singing, I love basketball, and I'm obsessed with dogs. So that's the brief introduction of Katie.
Great voice you have as well, Katie.
Thank
So
you.
let's go back to the beginning then. As I said, sort of when I talk about the founder to leader journey, obviously there is a start point. And what was the decision point for you to start your business, and what was that first business that you launched back 9 years ago?
Yeah, so I graduated from Queen's when I was 22 and didn't really know what I wanted to do. I've got a degree in English and linguistics, and I was like, I kind of picked it because I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I was like, right, I'll go and get a degree in something that I'm good at, that I enjoy, and that will leave options open for me. And I graduated and I thought, oh God, I haven't got a plan in place. I don't know what I'm going to do here. So I thought, right, I'll just go get a job in a bank, and kind of start from there and I'll figure it out. But throughout my final year of university, my mental illness had got a lot worse. And it was becoming a struggle, obviously do university, to do my dissertation, to hold down a relationship, being away from family, living in Northern Ireland. And I thought, oh God, right, I'm gonna just have to get this job then. So I started working in the bank, and I sound like the worst employee ever. I was there for the training. So I did the 20 days of training. And by the end of them, I was like, this is not for me. I cannot do this. Like, I'm not in a place mentally to be able to do this right now. And I ended up being signed off with mental illness for 6 months. And safe to say, I didn't go back. So then I was like, right, I need to support my boyfriend at the time, husband now, with the bills. It's not fair on him. I need to do something. So I went and got another little admin job. And that one was very, very quick. I lasted about an hour and a half. And I went outside for some fresh air at the break time. And the group of ladies that also worked in there, a lot of them were from Eastern Europe. And we got chatting about my degree. And they then said, why don't you tutor us? Like, you should tutor us English. You could really help us. And it was literally a light bulb. I was like, why am I not doing that? I was like, I should be tutoring people because I love helping people. I'm passionate about education, and it's something that I've got that lived experience with. I was tutored myself for 19 years I was tutored myself for 12 years from the age of 7 till 19 in maths. So then I thought, okay. So I went in and I packed my bag straight after the break and I said, sorry, but I've got business to run to start. And I came home and that was it. I decided, right, that's what I'm going to do. And started the business with £50. It was a tuition company, and teaching maths and English to 4 to 16-year-olds. And then it grew really, really quickly. Within 3 years, I had 45 staff working for me. We had expanded all across the UK. We had diversified all our services, so it wasn't just tuition. We were then having mini mindfulness classes. We were running mini medics, so teaching first aid to children. And it really kind of expanded. But if I'm being honest, it probably grew too big too quickly, especially for where I was mentally, and still was up until probably 5 years ago. So I'll pause there for a second then because I don't want to do a soliloquy. So
But I just wondered during that 3 years where the business really grew, what kind of strategies did you employ for yourself? Because obviously you're aware of the struggles that you were having and the stress that's there. Um, I mean, it's an incredible leap to go and launch a business at that stage. So, what strategies did you employ to help support yourself during those early days?
if I'm being completely honest, probably not enough good ones.
Mm,
Because I was so worried all the time about what other people thought of my business, what other people thought of me, whether I was capable enough. Obviously, being a young woman in business, I would always be assumed to be my husband's secretary, as opposed to the business owner. I'm sure, other women have experienced similar or the same things. Um, so for me, it was right. I'm so worried about everybody else and what they think and winning everything and growing it. I just need to make everything brilliant and perfect all the time.
mm,
And that was essentially where I went wrong
mm,
because I wouldn't ask anybody for help. I
mm,
was so determined that I was going to do it by myself and I was just going to, soldier on and keep going and almost becoming a martyr, if you like, where I was like, no, I'm fine. No, I'll just keep going. And it was when I got the premises that almost was the tipping point then,
mm,
where I was like, I actually need to start looking after myself properly
mm,
because this is the big reveal. When I was 26, the first business I actually was declared bankrupt.
mm,
So I was only 26 years old, 3 years into business, and lost everything. Went
mm,
back to square one or square zero. So I had less than what I started with. So I thought, oh my goodness, right. In this time here now, this is where I'm really going to have to start employing some actual strategies
yeah,
and some self-care to manage my own mental health and well-being,
mm,
but to mean that I'm also sustainable, if you like, I can actually keep doing this for a long period of time.
mm,
Whereas I always felt like I was running a race with my first business, and it was me putting pressure on myself,
mm,
but feeling as if I always had to present this image of, everything's perfect and I'm fine and
mm,
everything's great. But obviously it wasn't, the wheels came off and I was like, right, I need to ask for help. I need to get specialized trauma counseling, which I did do after the bankruptcy. And it was after the bankruptcy then that I was diagnosed with the disability.
mm,
Um, it's a autoimmune chronic condition, and they think that obviously autoimmune conditions are triggered or can be triggered by stress and trauma. So that's why I was like, right, I went to, specialized trauma counseling, got the help I needed, and also worked on myself in terms of like my gaps. So I started to look at things from a more logical perspective, if you like, and not so kind of emotional. I tried to remove the emotion from it and say, yeah, yes, it hurt me to go through the bankruptcy. Yes, it was awful for the staff, and you know, everything has gone. but this is like a reset now.
Mm.
So it was like, let's learn the lessons from this and go forward and build something that's going to be more successful, and also that actually suits my needs and the life that I want to live. Because it felt like I was just chasing my tail for those 3 years all the time.
Yeah.
And as much as it was fantastic and it was, I enjoyed it and it was great working with the kids and brilliant having a team and things, um, it was probably one of the best things that ever happened to me going through the bankruptcy, because it made me step back and reassess and actually ask myself that question: what strategies am I using or am I going to use to actually support my well-being going forward? Because if I'm not looking after me and investing in me, I'm not able to give the best of myself to others then.
And is that where Mind Tribe was born through coming through? Well, I mean, thank you for sharing that, because it's still not easy, particularly in Britain, to talk about business failures like that. And it's certainly something I've experienced in the past, and it is, as you say, a very traumatic experience to go through. So the fact that you sort of, as they say, learned from the experience, and that you're now able to see that it was a positive thing for you, or there were positives that came out of it, albeit that it triggered probably more difficult areas. But then tell us a bit about the next business that came, which I guess is Mind Tribe, is it?
Yeah, it was indeed. So during that time of being bankrupt, I was 2 months into the bankruptcy, and I was like, right, I'm starting another business. And everyone was like, sorry, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? And I was like, because I'm meant to be an entrepreneur. I was like, I can feel it. Like, it's literally in my soul. Like, I knew I always wanted to work for myself, but I never knew doing what.
Mm.
And so I always had that vision in my head of like, you'll work for yourself someday. But maybe not 8 weeks after you've been declared bankrupt. So obviously, as I was struggling with my own mental health at the time and was going through the counselling for that, and it sort of just started to dawn on me. I was like, I really love supporting other people with their mental health and well-being, and it's something I've grown up around. Mental illness, every woman in my family has a diagnosed mental illness. I've got relatives, that live with dual diagnosis, so would have mental illness and then addiction issues. So it's something I've always kind of been around and was already doing a lot of for people anyway without realizing, if that made sense, and sorry to be crass, but like not monetizing it either,
Mm.
and I thought to myself, right, this is something that not only am I passionate about, but it's something I could make money from. I was like, because I've got the lived experience there,
Mm.
and then I've got obviously close people around me. I've grown up around it. I've seen the impact that it can have on families, on communities. This is something that I could really kind of get behind, if you like, and really kind of embrace and grow. So I then spent a few weeks kind of planning it out on what I would. I took a much more structured approach this time. I didn't decide on a fresh air break that I was going to start a business. My husband is a business consultant, so he's very much like, right, here is the logic. Tell me what the structure is. So, Aaron's like.
Mm.
So I just basically said, right, to him, this is the plan, this is what I'm hoping to do, this is how I see it going, la 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 la. Give me 6 months. I said, give me 6 months, see what I can do with it. I said, and I'll just contribute what I can to the house. I said, and if after 6 months it isn't working, I'll stop and I'll go and get a normal job and help you out more, basically. And I'm very pleased to say we are 5 years down the line now, 5.5 years down the line. And the Mind Tribe is, as successful as it's ever been. I'm earning the most money I've ever earned, which has given me freedom that I've never had. I've been able to go to America twice in the last 2 years, which is just like mind blowing for me. I'd never been to America. Me and Aaron have been together 10 years, and only 3 years ago did we actually get to go on our first sunny holiday. you know, all the things I put him through, God. but but it's it has been a real challenge, entrepreneurship, but it's something that I just love. I love the fact that things can change so quickly. I love that I get to work with so many different people. I love being able to create impact, and also creating, as I said earlier, a life for myself that I want to live, that accommodates and allows that flexibility that I need to
Mm,
work with my mental illness, to work with the physical disability rather than against it. Because I can't do a Monday to Friday 9 to 5 job.
mm,
I
mm,
can't go and do that. That doesn't suit me.
mm,
And even, when as I say, when I've tried to do it in the past, I just end up ill.
mm.
So, as I say, taking the learnings from the different experiences, put that into practice with the Mind Tribe, and here we are.
And have you seen over recent years? I mentioned I've just done a newsletter on LinkedIn where I talk a bit about this, and you're tagged, Katie, so you can have a read it. But I mentioned the fact that particularly over the years that we were working together and running the Global Entrepreneurship Week sessions, we did a lot in terms of diversity and inclusion, which involved entrepreneurs and showcasing entrepreneurs. And you had a number of really interesting panel sessions via Zoom with entrepreneurs who are truly inspiring. Have you found that the climate has changed in terms of inclusivity with entrepreneurship over recent years?
I think it has. I think that, let's rephrase that. I think the dial is starting to shift. I think people are recognizing the importance and the value that comes from diversity, that comes from people's lived experiences. Um, but I still think there's a lot of work that needs to be done, because a lot of the time it's still seen as a tick box. It's
Mm,
still very much seen as, oh, yeah, we did a diversity and equality training this year.
mm,
That's us now,
mm,
rather than looking at sort of like the foundations of the, like the policies in the business,
mm,
and looking at the values and things like that. So I'm very hopeful that there is change starting to happen, particularly in Northern Ireland. I have noticed a lot more starting to come out now around supporting, particularly entrepreneurs from an ethnic minority or global majority
mm,
background, and also support for disabled entrepreneurs. So it is nice to see that happening. When I say see that, I'm doing it, but
mm, mm,
but you know what I mean. And other people obviously are starting to do similar things. We just had a what's it called, a grant that was specifically aimed at ethnic minority and global majority entrepreneurs, and that was obviously fantastic to see that, in Northern Ireland, our demographic is very different to the rest of the
mm,
UK. So across the entire population, only 2% are from an ethnic minority or global majority background. So it's a very, very small number we have over here. But there's so much potential within those communities, so it's about how do we get people, to reach their full potential and still have the same equity of opportunity, and still able to explore enterprise as a viable option for them,
mm,
no matter
mm,
what your background is.
mm. Perhaps just to finish off before we go into questions, I mean, as I said, that most of us as founders will have experienced to different degrees of levels of in terms of stress, different stress levels, anxiety, um, and real sort of depression and not being able to get out of bed in the morning, or just feeling very anxious as an entrepreneur about where the next paycheck is going to come from. What advice would you give to people who are kind of struggling with anxiety and depression as an entrepreneur?
It's a really good question. I think it's important, first of all, to note that everybody's experiences are going to be different and challenges, because I could say something that, oh, this works for me, but somebody else goes, well, that actually puts another obstacle in my way. So from my own experience, it's been about looking at what I can control around me. So a
Mm,
lot of my anxiety would be driven by not being able to control things. And I do this exercise. I try and do it once a month, where I sit down and I draw 3 circles Like just is concentric the right word, where they're like inside each other. Is that right? So you do like a smaller one and then a one big
Yeah,
around it.
yeah,
Yeah, you know what I mean.
yeah,
So so I do that, and then in the smallest circle, I write down the things that I have control over. The next one out, the next circle out, I write down the things that I have influence over. And then the outer one, I write down the things that I cannot control. And it
yeah.
allows me to almost get the stuff, if you like, out of my head and onto a page. So I can go, right, these are the things that I can control. These are the things that I need to focus on.
Mhm,
And if there's things that I can influence, what can I do to basically achieve, whatever it is that I want to? Um, that's really important for me to kind of see it graphically, if you like, or visually. I need to see it on a page to go, right,
mm,
these are actually all the things I do have control over. Because sometimes when you're struggling with anxiety, it can feel as if you don't have control over anything, including your own body and how safe you feel in your own body. So when if I used to struggle with panic disorder as well, panic attacks, I would do things, like the grounding exercises, your 5 4 3 2 1s, 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch,
mm,
basically going down and taking you through the senses. I also would do things like 4 7 8 breathing.
mhm,
So you breathe in for 4 seconds, hold it for 7 seconds, and then breathe out for 8 seconds. It doesn't have to be 4 7 8. It could be 3 5 6 or 5 7 9. But the most important thing is that your out breath is your longest.
mm,
And that's because when you're panicked, you have a higher concentration of CO2 in your blood. So when you are very, very anxious and very stressed, you need to try and breathe out for longer than you're breathing in, because it gets rid and dissipates the excess carbon dioxide. So even like knowing that, for example, on a
yeah,
logical level,
mm,
helped me. So I'm having a panic attack and I go, right, I know on a scientific level, somewhere in the back of my brain, if I do this, it's going to help me. So I've already got in my head, this is going to help,
mhm,
rather than me going, I'm out of control,
mhm,
nothing's working. And
mhm,
it takes practice to be able to do
mhm,
that, like when you're having a panic attack, because a lot of
mhm,
the time your brain just goes, ah. So it does take work. Also, I try to do something once a week that gives me something to look forward to, because that is something that I would struggle with in terms of the depression side of things. It can catch up with me quite quickly if I don't have something to look forward to. And that doesn't have to be, a big expensive thing. I just mean, we're taking the dogs, I don't know, to the forest at the weekend,
mhm,
or we went and saw Jimmy Carr last week. That
mhm,
wasn't an expensive one. So, and that's something I love as well. It's comedy. I love to laugh. You can probably tell already. I'm very like, so, and I know that that makes me feel good when I laugh. So we try and watch comedy podcasts, try and go to a lot of comedy shows where we can. And also the final thing is taking control of what I'm eating. So my gut health, I'm not sitting here preaching to anybody. My goodness me, I've only just started my healthy eating 2 weeks ago again. But we all know the importance between gut health and mental health. We have a gut brain axis for a reason.
mm,
Our gut is our second brain. So if we look after that and nourish that, it does help us mentally. It's not a quick fix, but it's something to consider. And even like things, taking vitamin D supplements, taking vitamin B12 for like my energy levels and things, those little things. Even though at the time, say I was very low when I started these, I wasn't thinking to myself, oh, this is it, this is the cure, this is going to fix me. Because it's not just a case of that. How many people do you hear flippantly remark things like, oh, just go for a walk, you'll be all right, do a bit of yoga,
mm,
and you're like,
mm,
right, but I know that, but I've lived with it for the last however many years, whatever, 15 years now. Going for a walk isn't enough,
mm.
so it's looking at the things that work for me, things that I enjoy, and things that actually make me feel rested, so that I can then give the best of myself to whatever it is that I'm doing.
Wow, thanks, Katie. I'm going to pause now. I'm sure there are going to be questions. Just before I open it up for questions or comments, it might not even be a question. I just wanted to share with you some of the things that happen after today. So what we have is an online community where this video will be shared. Come on, go to slideshow. And I think everybody who's here will have received an email invite to join the online UpCoach community, where this and previous recordings are there. And it'll be good to continue to chat to each other on there. Katie, I'll get from you some links to your business. If there's anything that you want to share about what you're doing, I'll send you an invite as well to that. We can continue the discussion there. Some of you might be in the UK and in the London area. You might be interested to know that I'm launching 4 Women in Business network groups. Caroline's part of the Women in Business network as well, and can speak to the value of the face-to-face meetings and all that the Women in Business network group do to support each other. If you're in the area or can travel easily to King's Cross, Liverpool Street, Wimbledon or Wandsworth in London, then I'd love to see you at the launch events there. I don't know why that says define what you need to measure and track there, but for some reason that's obviously come from someone else. The other area I wanted to talk about was it's nearly the end of the year, and I'm sure we set out 2024 with some goals in mind and might be thinking now, or maybe you have exceeded them, which is great to celebrate and to do that. Well, I'm bringing on for my next cohort a small group of female founders who want to work together and work one-to-one with me to help to achieve those business goals. But if you want more information about that, then I'm happy to book a call with you to discuss that. But as most of you know, because we've been on the call together, I'm very happy to just have a one-to-one with you, just to sort of do a temperature check on where your business is now and what are those things you need to do. So that can just be the chat that we have about your business and where it is. But as I say, if you're interested in joining an accelerator program, partly online on the UpCoach community, and peer group sessions and one-to-one coaching, I'd be very happy to talk to you about that. So I'm going to stop the share now and just open it up. Please unmute yourself, and any comments or questions to Katie about all that she's shared.
Just to jump in quickly, Elaine, just to say that I'm very much an open book. So if there's anything at all that you want to ask, please just ask it, because it doesn't bother me. I'll answer anything.
I think I just wanted to say thank you, because that was really, I think it's not spoken about enough, if I'm honest. And I think everyone has their own little, and people are embarrassed. I think I've worked by myself for nearly 18 years now. So working from home is the norm. And then it was only when we couldn't go out and then we could go out, I realised that actually I became a bit too happy being at home. So the thought of going to the shop was a massive deal. And I was kind of hiding it until my husband sort of noticed that I didn't want to go to the shop, which is at the end of the road, in case. And I don't actually know what it was that I was worried about. And I think I just got into a habit of not leaving the house. And so when you said that you book something up, that's actually what I do. I make sure that I'm booked up and someone's relying on me to be there. So it makes me get ready and go out rather than just sitting at home, which I could quite happily do for the. It's really sad, but yeah. But no, that's really. And the other thing I think, so our journeys seem to be completely different, because I was young when I started my business, but I've never ventured out to. So when you said you had 45 staff, I thought, bloody hell, like I'm the opposite. I've literally just taken on one new lady now, and it's what you can control, isn't it? And I just thought, no, I know. But now I've got her, I'm thinking, God, it was brilliant. So yeah, you went like that, and I've just sort of stayed, you know. But it's just the journey, isn't it? So, but well done for picking yourself up, because that is it's bloody amazing that you did that in the beginning, and then to then do it again. Congratulations, I think that's brilliant. Well done.
Thank you very much. Thank you, and I appreciate that. And you know, as you say, it's something that isn't spoken about enough, you know, that entrepreneurs are and founders are also susceptible to mental illness and down days and off days. And you know, it is, you know, you said there about it almost became habit, like not going out. And that's the thing that my husband notices with me. Like, he'll be like, you've worked at home all this week, you haven't been out doing training face to face. He'll be like, get in the car, like we'll just go Tesco or something, or go for a spin, you know, just to kind of get me out. So I am very lucky in that sense that I have a support network around me that recognize when I'm not myself as well. So I'm very, very grateful for them. But no, thank you for your comments. Appreciate it.
And that circle thing, I've made a note of that, because I think that's really helpful. I've never heard of that before. So thank you for that too.
Yeah, I was just going to mention the same thing. I think that's a very useful little exercise to do, because it's true that we spend probably over 90% of the time worrying about things that we've absolutely got no control over. And so, you know, putting it down on paper like that to say, okay, these are the things I can control and these are what I can influence. So that's really where it's worth spending our effort on those areas, is really helpful to do. And I think just the openness I've noticed in recent years, particularly when it comes to people talking about stress and depression, I think that's been a really positive move. And I think probably more so for men, that it's now much more acceptable for men to talk about their anxieties and fears. Women, because we do tend to have closer relationships where we reveal more about ourselves, I think, than men do with their friends. But so to see it happening in the workplace, I think is fantastic to do.
I agree, and I think it humanizes businesses as well. You know, because a lot of the time we just think of businesses like machines almost, and you're like, well, they're run by people. You know, so it's the human side of things that, yes, we're all susceptible to failures and to illness and to challenges, you know, so it's we're all on a journey, you know. And I think you've got to give people, well, I'm very much I give people about 12,000 chances, so because I just believe that people can always change and do better, you know. So going off on a tangent there, sorry.
So Katie, if you want to just drop your LinkedIn or contact details in the chat before we leave. But as I say, what I'd like to do is sort of myself and Ikutu will follow up with you, Katie, and anything that you've got that's happening or links or we can put in the UpCoach community. We will do that.
Thank you.
Next week, we have another female founder whose businesses, again, started a couple of different businesses, and they are very, very different businesses. But again, the start point was from seeing a personal need and a personal motivation, a problem that happened for her that caused her to focus on where she took her business. I'm deliberately being vague about what it is she's doing because I don't want to spoil it for you for the story. And her name is Elaine also, so that's going to be a bit confusing next week with two Elaines, but I hope that you can join us. And for people who aren't here in person and are watching the playback, we're always very happy to take comments and suggestions. Ikutu is in regular contact with our mailing list of people who register for these events. So anything at all, people can contact either myself or Ikutu. And we are just about really on our time for this. So I'd like to thank you again, Katie, and it's been great to reconnect with you after the last few months. And I wish everybody a great rest of the week, and we'll be in touch and hopefully see you all next week. Bye for now.